You know, one of the most complicated, rarely spoken truths about being human is that our minds, for all their brilliance, are double-edged swords. The same thoughts that give us clarity can also trap us. The same traits that make us extraordinary in one moment can quietly dismantle us in another. And I want to say this up front. It's not your fault. Most of us were never taught how to live with the full weight of our own mind. Especially not if you happen to carry an INTP personality. If you're not familiar, INTP stands for introverted, intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. On paper, it sounds like a gift. A deep thinker, an architect of ideas, an independent soul, endlessly curious about the how and why behind everything. And yes, it is a gift. But like anything rare in this world, it comes with a quiet, unspoken cost. What no one tells you is how heavy it feels to live inside a brain that never truly shuts off, to constantly analyze, to break down conversations from 3 weeks ago, looking for something you missed, to imagine 20 different versions of your life in your head, and still feel uneasy about every single one. And here's the quiet part most won't admit. Most people around you won't see it, because INTPs are masters of masking. They hide their overwhelm behind sarcasm. They tuck their sadness inside philosophy. They bury their loneliness in books, ideas, and abstract conversations about the nature of the universe, because it's safer there than inside their own feelings. And if we're being honest, even INTPs don't fully understand themselves half the time. They'll look calm on the outside, detached even, while inside there's a storm no one else can see. I know that storm, and if no one's ever said this to you, you don't have to fight it alone. Today, we're going to quietly unpack the dark side of the INTP mind, not to judge it, not to shame it, and not to fix it, but to finally see it for what it is. Because healing doesn't begin when you cover up your shadows. It begins when you learn to see them without flinching. And if any part of you has ever felt like your mind is both your sanctuary and your prison, you're in the right place. You're not broken. You're carrying a mind that feels heavier than most. And believe me, there's a way to live with it. The INTP's inner world, a double-edged sword. Inside the INTP mind, there's this relentless hunger, a craving for knowledge, for understanding, for meaning. It's a mind that's always searching, always questioning, never quite satisfied with surface answers. That drive to know more, to figure things out, is one of the INTP's greatest strengths. It's what makes them so original, so insightful. But here's the other side. That same thirst for knowledge often builds walls around them, because when you spend most of your time in your own head, chasing ideas and theories, it's easy to lose touch with the world outside. Connections with others become harder to sustain. Conversations can feel shallow, frustrating, or exhausting. The more you try to explain yourself, the more misunderstood you become. There's truth to the loneliness that lives inside this mind. Research backs this up. Studies show that introverted personalities, especially those high in traits like intuition and thinking, the core of the INTP, are more prone to social isolation. According to a 2021 study by the American Psychological Association, around 30% of people who identify with similar personality types report feelings of chronic loneliness tied to overthinking and social withdrawal. And it's not just feeling alone, it's the constant mental replay, the questioning of every interaction, every word, that keeps them trapped in their own head. Overthinking isn't just a habit, it's a cycle that feeds itself. The more you analyze, the more isolated you feel. The more isolated you feel, the deeper you dive into your thoughts. And this cycle can leave you exhausted, mentally drained, and emotionally distant from the people who want to reach you. But it's important to remember this. Your isolation isn't a failure or a flaw. It's a consequence of how deeply your mind works. And that depth, while heavy at times, is also the root of your unique strength. Emotional detachment and the cost of intellectualism. One of the most misunderstood parts of the INTP experience is the way emotions play out, or sometimes don't. INTPs live in their heads, surrounded by ideas and logic, and often emotions feel like a foreign language. Not because they lack feelings, far from it, but because the way they process emotions is filtered through analysis and reason. This intellectualizing of feelings can create a distance, not just from their own emotions, but from the emotions of others. What others experience as warmth or closeness can sometimes feel overwhelming, confusing, or even distracting. So instead, INTPs often retreat further into their minds, creating a kind of emotional coldness that protects them but also isolates them. This isn't coldness by choice, it's a defense mechanism. When feelings become too intense, too unpredictable, the instinct is to step back, to observe rather than engage, to think rather than feel. But this detachment comes with a cost. Relationships, romantic, friendly, or even professional, can suffer. Loved ones may feel shut out, misunderstood, or unseen. And the INTP, in turn, may feel frustrated by how difficult it is to connect in a way that feels authentic and safe. A 2018 survey from the Journal of Personality Psychology found that individuals with strong thinking and introverted traits report higher difficulties in expressing and receiving emotional support. This emotional gap isn't a weakness. It's a challenge born from a mind that prefers clarity over chaos, logic over noise. Understanding this cost doesn't mean resigning yourself to it. It means recognizing that the journey toward emotional connection requires more than just intellect. It requires patience, with yourself and with those trying to reach you. You don't have to change who you are to be understood, but learning to step into your feelings, even when it's uncomfortable, can create bridges where before there were walls. The anxiety of not fitting in. For many INTPs, there's a persistent, quiet anxiety that often goes unspoken. The feeling of not quite fitting in. It's not just about being introverted or preferring solitude. It's about the way their mind works, how they see the world so differently from those around them. In workspaces, this can look like feeling out of sync with team dynamics that favor small talk, quick decisions, or social hierarchy. INTPs tend to want depth and meaning in their tasks. Surface-level conversations or repetitive routines can feel draining, even suffocating. Social circles can be just as challenging. The typical group energy might feel overwhelming or superficial. INTPs often find themselves on the outside looking in, wanting connection, but unsure how to bridge the gap between their complex inner world and the lighter, faster pace of everyday socializing. In relationships, this dissonance can turn into tension. Partners or friends might interpret the INTP's quietness or detachment as disinterest or aloofness, even when that's far from the truth. And the INTP may feel misunderstood, pressured, or simply exhausted trying to explain themselves. Psychological research helps shed light on this experience. A 2019 study published in Social, Psychological, and Personality Science found that people who feel they don't belong are more likely to experience anxiety, lowered self-esteem, and even physical health issues. This is called social alienation, a feeling that your inner reality doesn't align with the external world. For INTPs, this isn't just an occasional feeling. It can be an ongoing shadow. But this doesn't mean it's permanent or unchangeable. Recognizing this anxiety is the first step toward relief. It means acknowledging that feeling out of place doesn't make you flawed. It makes you human. And with understanding, you can learn to find spaces, in work, in friendships, in love, where your mind and heart feel less like strangers and more like home. The endless loop of overthinking. There's a quiet trap that many INTP minds fall into, a loop that can feel impossible to escape. It's the habit of overthinking, of living in your head so deeply that the world outside becomes a distant echo. The mind races through every possibility, every what if, every tiny detail that others might overlook. This constant mental activity might seem like a superpower. After all, it's what helps you see patterns others miss. But when left unchecked, this cycle can quietly erode your mental health. Endless analysis leads to what psychologists call decision paralysis. When every option is weighed, debated, and dissected, making a choice can feel overwhelming, like stepping into quicksand. And the longer you stay stuck in that space, the more exhausted your mind becomes. Anxiety creeps in, fueled by the pressure of wanting to get everything right. A 2020 report from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America highlights that chronic overthinking is strongly linked to increased anxiety and depression. For INTPs whose brains are wired for complexity and depth, this can feel like a daily battle. You might find yourself rereading emails, second-guessing conversations, or imagining countless futures, all while time slips away. This mental exhaustion doesn't just stay in your head. It leaks into your energy, your motivation, your ability to be present. But here's a vital truth. The mind is a tool, not a cage. Learning to recognize when your thinking is helping and when it's hurting is a skill worth cultivating. It means allowing space for uncertainty, embracing imperfection, and sometimes choosing action over endless analysis. Because growth and peace don't come from thinking more. They come from trusting yourself enough to move forward even when the path isn't perfectly clear. How to embrace, not escape, this darkness. Living with an INTP mind means carrying a weight that's invisible to most, but very real to you. The first step isn't trying to run away from this darkness, because it's part of who you are. Instead, it's about learning how to hold it gently, to set boundaries with your own mind, and to turn your introspection into a source of strength rather than struggle. One practical way is to create mental checkpoints. When your thoughts spiral into that endless loop, pause. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or is it trapping me? You don't have to follow every mental rabbit hole down to the bottom. Sometimes, letting go is a radical act of self-care. Another important practice is to honor your need for solitude without letting it become isolation. Spend time with ideas, yes, but also seek moments of connection that feel safe and genuine. Even small interactions, like sharing a thought with a trusted friend or writing down your feelings, can break the cycle of loneliness. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This means embracing all parts of yourself, even the confusing, painful, or overwhelming parts, is what leads to real understanding and growth. Similarly, Carl Rogers reminded us, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means starting from a place of kindness toward yourself, especially the parts that feel hardest to face. Your mind's depth is a gift. Your introspection can be a guide, a way to explore your true self beyond surface appearances. Learning to navigate this darkness, rather than fleeing it, can unlock a sense of peace and clarity you didn't think possible. You're not meant to dim your light or shrink your complexity to fit in. You're meant to learn how to shine through it, in your own way, at your own pace. Fear of commitment and the weight of what-ifs. One of the quiet battles many INTP minds face is the fear of commitment, not because of a lack of desire, but because the endless what-ifs make it feel impossible to choose. Whether it's about relationships, careers, or big life decisions, the mind spins through every possible scenario. What if this isn't the right path? What if there's something better just around the corner? This mental weighing can make settling on any choice feel like locking yourself in a cage. This fear isn't just about doubt. It's about the anxiety of permanence. The idea that once you commit, options close off, and the world of possibilities shrinks. For a mind that thrives on exploration and freedom, this feels like a loss. And the pressure to get it right only makes the weight heavier. Research in psychology points to this struggle as part of a bigger issue called decision fatigue, where too many options and overthinking lead to stress, anxiety, and even avoidance. INTPs are especially vulnerable because their curiosity pulls them toward every potential future, but their fear of missing out holds them back from embracing any one path fully. The truth is, no decision is perfect or permanent. Life's richness comes from the experiences we create, not from the safety of endless possibilities. Committing doesn't mean losing freedom. It means choosing what matters most to you, even if uncertainty remains. Understanding this tension is a form of self-compassion. It's about giving yourself permission to choose imperfectly and knowing that growth happens in the doing, not the perfect planning. Because in the end, the fear of missing out only fades when you fully show up for what you've chosen. The crisis of existential nihilism. One of the most profound challenges for many INTP minds is the relentless questioning of life's meaning, the search for purpose that can sometimes lead to a heavy emptiness instead. This isn't just curiosity, it's a deep, sometimes painful wrestling with the idea that maybe nothing truly matters. When your mind constantly circles the vastness of existence, it's easy to feel emotionally exhausted. This isn't a simple sadness, it's a numbness, a quiet void where hope and motivation can start to feel distant. Mental health research shows this is more common than we think. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Affective Disorders revealed that existential anxiety, the distress caused by questions about meaning and purpose, is linked to higher rates of depression and emotional burnout. For INTPs, whose thinking naturally gravitates toward big-picture questions, this can be a significant emotional burden. The danger lies in getting stuck in this cycle of doubt, where every answer seems temporary or unsatisfying, and every belief feels fragile. But the path forward isn't to avoid these questions, it's to hold them with care. Philosophers and psychologists alike have spoken about the power of embracing uncertainty. Viktor Frankl, a renowned psychiatrist, taught that even in the face of meaninglessness, we can create our own purpose through the values we live by, the connections we build, and the courage we show each day. This crisis, as painful as it feels, can become a gateway, a space where you learn to sit with the unknown without losing yourself. It invites you to find meaning, not in some grand cosmic truth, but in the small human moments that connect you to life. It's not about solving the mystery of existence once and for all. It's about learning to live fully, even when the answers aren't clear. Self-sabotage. Through isolation. When emotions become too heavy, many INTPs instinctively retreat, not just into their minds, but away from the people who care most. This withdrawal can feel like a protective shield, a way to avoid being overwhelmed or misunderstood. But beneath this isolation lies a quieter, more painful truth. Sometimes it's an unconscious form of self-sabotage. Pushing others away or ghosting loved ones isn't about rejection. It's about fear. Fear of vulnerability, fear of burdening others, fear of being seen in your rawest, most fragile state. Yet with every step back, the distance grows, not just between you and others, but between you and your own sense of worth. This pattern can erode your confidence in connection. You might start to believe you're too complicated, too difficult, or simply not deserving of closeness. Over time, this belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, deepening feelings of loneliness and disconnection. Research shows that chronic social isolation affects mental health as profoundly as other well-known risk factors for depression and anxiety. For INTPs, who often rely on solitude, this risk can be especially high when isolation crosses into emotional avoidance. Understanding this pattern is a crucial step toward breaking it. It means recognizing that reaching out, even when it feels hard, is an act of courage, not weakness. And that true connection isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about showing up as you are, even with your shadows. By learning to sit with discomfort and share your inner world, you invite healing for yourself and for those who want to be there beside you. You deserve that connection. You deserve to be seen. And you are far more whole than you sometimes believe. Impostor syndrome in high-performing INTPs. It might surprise some to hear this, but many INTPs, despite their sharp intellect and thoughtful insight, live with a persistent sense of being a fraud. No matter the accomplishments, no matter the praise, there's this quiet voice whispering that they don't truly belong, that any success is just luck or a fluke. This feeling, known as impostor syndrome, is especially common among INTPs. Their minds are wired to analyze every detail, to question not just the world, but themselves, relentlessly. So when they achieve something great, it's not uncommon for them to dismiss it as mere happenstance, rather than their own hard work or talent. According to the American Psychological Association, personality traits like introversion, high openness, and a strong inner critic, as often found in INTPs, correlate with higher rates of imposter syndrome. Nearly 70% of adults report experiencing this at some point, and it hits those who push themselves hardest the deepest. This internal struggle doesn't just affect careers, it spills into relationships, creativity, and self-worth. It creates a gap between who you are and who you feel you should be, leaving a constant, exhausting pressure to prove yourself over and over again. But here's the truth that often gets lost. Feeling like an imposter doesn't mean you are one. It means you care deeply about your work, your values, and your authenticity. The very sensitivity and thoughtfulness that make you doubt yourself are also what make you brilliant and unique. Healing from imposter syndrome starts with acknowledging it without judgment and learning to recognize your achievements as genuine reflections of your abilities, not accidents. As Carl Rogers wisely said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Accepting your imperfections, your doubts, and your fears doesn't weaken you. It frees you to show up fully in your life. Emotional regulation. Why it's not your fault, but your responsibility. For many INTPs, emotions feel like a foreign language, complex, unpredictable, and often overwhelming. You might notice that when emotions arise, whether your own or others, it's hard to process them clearly. Instead, they tend to swirl inside your mind, confusing logic and feeling in a way that feels frustrating or even paralyzing. This isn't a failing or a flaw. It's simply how your mind works. Your brain's natural tendency is to prioritize analysis and reason, which can make emotional experiences feel distant or like something to solve rather than feel. And because society often teaches men and women, especially introverts, to suppress emotions, this difficulty in emotional regulation is something many grow up believing is just who they are. But here's the important part. While it's not your fault, it is your responsibility. Your emotions are signals, messages your mind and body send to help you navigate life. Ignoring them or pushing them away might feel safe in the short term, but it slowly disconnects you from yourself and others. Psychological studies consistently show that developing emotional regulation skills improves not only mental health, but also relationships, decision-making, and overall life satisfaction. People who learn to recognize, name, and sit with their emotions, even uncomfortable ones, build resilience and a stronger sense of self. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Emotional regulation isn't about eliminating feelings or becoming cold. It's about waking up to your emotional truth and learning to hold it with care. You don't have to be overwhelmed by your feelings. You don't have to fear them. You can learn to respond to them with kindness and clarity. And in doing so, you reclaim control over your inner world. Before we move forward, I want to hear from you. Which part of your mind feels the heaviest right now? What questions or struggles do you want to unpack next? Your experiences shape these conversations, and I want to make sure we're exploring what matters most to you. Feel free to share your thoughts. This space is for understanding, not judgment. I want you to take a moment and really feel this. Whatever you're carrying right now, it's real, and it matters. You've been navigating a mind that's not easy to live with. You've faced thoughts and feelings most people never even see. That weight can feel unbearable, like you're walking a path alone in the dark. But you're not alone. Not now, not ever. Every struggle you've had with your thoughts, your emotions, your need to understand and make sense of it all, those are not signs of weakness. They're signs of a deeply sensitive, thoughtful soul who's trying to find their place in a world that doesn't always understand them. Healing isn't a destination. It's a process, and it starts with accepting yourself, shadows and all. There is light inside your mind, even if it feels buried beneath the noise. And with patience, compassion, and time, that light can grow, enough to guide you toward peace. You are seen, you are valued, and you are capable of living fully, not despite your mind's complexity, but because of it. Hold on to that truth. It's the beginning of everything.